The proteform graph itself is a polyhedron of scripture. There was a time when naive alphabeters would have written it down the tracing of a purely deliquescent recidivist, possibly ambidextrous, snub-nosed probably, and presenting a strangely profound rainbow in his or her occiput. To the heartily curiousing entomophilist, then it has shown a very sex mosaic of nymphosis, in which the eternal chimera hunter Oreolopos, now fond of sugars then leaf of salts, the sensory crowd in his belly, coupled with an eye for the good's truth, bewilder blissed by their night of fluvia, with guns like drums and fondlers like forceps, persecutilates his Vanessas from floor to floor. Somehow this sounds like the purest Kedulion, wherein our Maderna solution of our lore is rich. Also hero from us, him in a kitchenot darkness by hazard and worn rolls of red. We must grope on to Xeroc hour like poo owl hours. As we are, we would salve aught of moments for our eyesore today. A mousen, though not but, closer inspection of the bordereau would reveal a multiplicity of personalities inflicted on the documents or document, and some prevision of virtual crime or crimes might be made by anyone unwary enough before any suitable occasion for it or them had so far managed to happen along. In fact, under the closed eyes of the inspectors, the traits featuring the chiaroscuro coalesce, their contrarieties eliminated, in one stable somebody, similarly as by the providential warring of heart shaker with house breaker and of dram drinker against free thinker, our social something bows along bumpily, experiencing a jolting series of prearranged disappointments down the long lane of it's as semper as oxhouse humper, generations, more generations, and still more generations. Say, Baron Lucidor, who in Hall Hegel wrote the darn thing anyhow? Erect, be seated, mount back against a party wall, below freezy grade by use of quill or style with turbid or pellucid mind, accompanied or the reverse by mastication, interrupted by a visit of seer to scribe, or of scribe to sight atwixt two showers, or a toss of a trike rained upon or blown around by a right down regular racer from the soil, or by a too-pained whittle wit laden with the loot of learning. Now patience, and remember, patience is the great thing, and above all things else we must avoid anything like being or becoming out of patience. A good plan used by worried business folk who may not have had many momentums to master Kung's doctrine of the meaning, or the propriety codestruces of Car Primustimus, is just to think of all the sinking fund of patience possessed in their conjoint names by both brothers Bruce, with whom are incorporated their Scotch Spider and Elberfeld's calculating horses. If after years upon years of delving in ditches dark, one tub thumper more than others, Kinney Hoon or Cahanan, G.R. Darner, or mere Meeson Menanger, has got up for the darn all same purpose of reassuring us with all the barber of the Carriagee house that our great ascendant was, properly speaking, 3 syllables less than his own surname. Yes, less. That the ear of Finn Earwicker aforetime was the trademark of a broadcaster with wicker local jargon for an aces patent. Here, cause, everywhere. Then as to this radio-oscillating epi-epistle to which cotton, silk, or samite, cohol, gall, or brick dust, we must ceaselessly return. Whereabouts exactly at present in Siam, Hell, or Tophet under that glory soul, which plays tour-a-loop with us in this alludence cove of our cageosity, is that bright so-and-such to slip us the dinkum oil? Naysayers, we know, to conclude purely negatively from the positive absence of political odia and monetary request that its page cannot ever have been a pen product of a man or woman of that period or those parts, is only one more unlooked for conclusion leaped at, being tantamount to inferring from the non-presence of inverted commas, sometimes called quotation marks, on any page that its author was always constitutionally incapable of misappropriating the spoken words of others. Luckily there is another cat to this questy. Has any fellow of the dime a dozen type, it might with some profit some dull evening quietly be hinted, has any usual sort of ornery josser, flat-chested 40ish, faintly flatulent and given to ratiocination by syncopation in the elucidation of complications of his greatest fungang dynast descendants, only another the son of, in fact, ever looked sufficiently longingly at a quite everyday-looking stamped addressed envelope? Admittedly, it is an outer husk. Its face in all its featureful perfection of imperfection is its fortune. It exhibits only the civil or military clothing of whatever passion, pallid nudity, or plague purple nakedness may happen to tuck itself under its flap. Yet to concentrate solely on the literal sense or even the psychological content of any document to the sore neglect of the enveloping facts themselves, circumstantiating it is just as hurtful to sound sense, and let it be added to the truest taste, as were some fellow in the act of perhaps getting an intro from another fellow, turning out to be a friend in need of his, say, to a lady of the latter's acquaintance, engaged in performing the elaborative ancestral ceremony of upstairs, straightway to run off and vision her plump and plain and her natural altogether, preferring to close his blink-hard's eyes to the ethical fact that she was, after all, wearing, for the space of the time being, some definite articles of evolutionary clothing, inharmonious creations, a captious critic might describe them as, or not strictly necessary, or a trifle irritating here and there, but for all that suddenly full of local colour and personal perfume, and suggestive too of so very much more, and capable of being stretched, filled out if need or wish were, of having their surprisingly like coincidental parts separated, don't they now, for better surveyed by the deft hand of an expert, don't you know, who in his heart doubts either that the facts of feminine clothing are there all the time, or that the feminine fiction, stranger than the facts, is there also at the same time, only a little to the rear, or that one may be separated from the other, or that both may then be contemplated simultaneously, or that each may be taken up and considered in turn apart from the other. Here let a few artifacts fend in their own favour. The river felt she wanted salt. That was just where Brian came in. The country asked for bear's paw for din-din, and boundin' aboundin' it got it surly. We who live under heaven, we of the clovery kingdom, we middle sins people have often watched the sky overreaching the land. We suddenly have our eyeless sange, the place. That stern chuckler, mayhap he mayhap not, once said to repetition in that Lutheran conservatory way of his, that is it a chapel as it a Lucan, was the one place alt nult in this mad val of tars, whose verdures yellowed their ever fading parks' car, while its Tamilized tay is the dream of Draenophilius, where the possible was the improbable and the improbable the inevitable. If the proverbial bishop of our holy and undivided with this me ken or no me ken zot is the quiz tune havermashed had his toenails on the head, we are in for a sequentiality of improbable possibles, though possibly nobody, after having grubbed up a lock of cold corn above his subject, probably in Harry's Totalies or the Bible, will go out of his way to applaud him on the unboy-assed back of his remark, for utterly impossible as are all these events, they are probably as like those which may have taken place as any others which never took person at all are ever likely to be. About that original hen, midwinter, Freur or Cour was in the offing, and Premvera promise of April, when as Kisha Bridgie sang life's old sad song, an ice-clad shiverer, merest of bantlings observed a cold fowl behaviourizing strangely on that fatal midden or chip factory, or comical-bottomed copse jute, dump for short, afterwards changed into the orangery, when in the course of deeper demolition, unexpectedly one bushman's holiday, its lineman threw up a few spontaneous fragments of orange peel, the last remains of an outdoor meal by some unknown sun-seeker or place-hider, illico way back in his mist-ridden past. What child of a strand looper but capy little Kevin, in the despondful surroundings of such sneezing cold, would ever have trooved up on a strait that was called street, a motive for future sanctity by euchering the finding of the Arda chalice by another highly innocent beach-walker whilst trying with pious clamour to wheedle tip raw re-raw potatoes out of now sealand instinct of the patch purple of the massacre. A duel to die today. God damn and begod, sticks and stanks of most of the Jacobiters.